The sound you're hearing is a glass harmonica, an ethereal, almost otherworldly instrument that produces hauntingly beautiful melodies. It was invented by none other than Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States. Franklin, a polymath who dabbled in everything from electricity to diplomacy, was fascinated by the way moistened fingers could make wine glasses sing. He took that principle and refined it, creating an instrument that enchanted both aristocrats and commoners alike. But this video is not about the instrument itself. It's about what it stands for. Freedom, expression, inspiration, innovation, beauty. What is the first thing that happens when an authoritarian regime takes over? What must happen for corruption to rule without question? The suppression of free expression. A dictator cannot afford to let individuals think for themselves. There can be no gods but the state, no dreams but those sanctioned by the regime, no art that does not serve the leader's cause. The very concept of independent thought must be crushed under the weight of fear, conformity, and propaganda. Russian history provides us with a perfect example, the October Revolution of 1917. It began with promises of peace, land and bread for everyone once they were free from the oppressive rule of the royal Tsar, but soon after the Russian Communist Party, the Bolsheviki, having seized power, turned against the very freedoms they had claimed to fight for. When the House of Romanov fell in 1917 during the February Revolution, the provisional government under Alexander Kerensky granted full freedom of speech and press. For a brief moment, Russia basked in an intellectual renaissance. Newspapers flourished, political discourse thrived, and the people had a taste of true democracy. Then came Lenin. Within days of the Bolsheviki coup in October of the same year, Lenin shut down independent newspapers. Speaking against the new government became a crime punishable by arrest, exile or execution. Universities, literature and the arts were forced to align with party ideology, and things would only get worse. Joseph Stalin did not immediately rise to power after Vladimir Lenin's death in 1924. In fact, not even Lenin liked him and had warned against him. But he played the long game, outmaneuvering and eliminating his rivals. By 1929, he was the undisputed leader of the Soviet Union, and the first thing he did was to erase the concept of being first. Under Stalin, ambition, achievement, and personal excellence were dangerous. To be exceptional meant to stand apart from the collective, to challenge the uniformity of the Soviet machine. He could not tolerate this. Individual pride, artistic expression and intellectual dissent were stamped out, their remnants buried under mass purges, forced labor camps and show trials. Millions perished. Entire cultures were silenced. Artists, writers, religious leaders, scientists, anyone who dared to think outside of the bounds of state-approved ideology were either executed or sent to the gulags. The suppression of creativity was not just collateral damage, it was the goal. Russian and East European history is steeped in rich and diverse folklore, breathtaking art and soul-stirring music. But under decades of Soviet repression, much of it was lost. When artists were forced to create for the Soviet Union's political goals rather than for themselves, creativity withered. After Stalin, the cycle of repression continued. Nikita Khrushchev loosened restrictions briefly, only for Leonid Brezhnev to clamp down once more. Under Brezhnev's rule, media was tightly controlled and only one artistic style was deemed acceptable: socialist realism. A glorified, sanitized portrayal of Sovietsky Sayos life that allowed no room for critique, nuance or true human emotion. During this time, one of the most striking acts of artistic defiance came in the form of a 1968 animated short film, The Glass Harmonica, directed by Andrei Khranovsky. The film is truly remarkable, not only for its surreal visuals but for its message. A message so powerful that it was banned almost immediately after its release. Without using any dialogue, it tells a story of a society where freedom, creativity and natural beauty has a chance. Until a bad man seizes control. He does not rule through wisdom or strength, but through bribery and force, manipulating the people to become the architects of their own oppression. Under his rule, they willingly trade their humanity for greed and mindless obedience, destroying the very culture and history that once gave them meaning. The imagery is stark. An old man plays the glass harmonica, his music breathing color and life into a grey world, until he is dragged away and his fragile instrument is shattered. In another haunting scene, a great clock, a symbol of history and order, is destroyed, not by the dictator's own hands, but by the very people it once guided, now blind to their own past. But the film does not end in despair. Amid the conformity and corruption, a lone child resists. Unlike the adults who have surrendered to greed and obedience, he remembers the harmonica's melody and clings to its truth. But resistance is not easy. As he grows, he witnesses the full extent of the regime's grip, the destruction of the clock, the silencing of those who dare to create, and yet he refuses to succumb. Years later, he returns as a man, carrying the memory of what was lost. His purity and conviction make him a beacon of renewal, a Christ-like figure who awakens the people from their delusion. Inspired by his defiance, they begin to see through the falsehoods they once embraced. Together, they rise against the regime, assembling the broken clock and restoring history, truth and order. Just as the harmonica's melody is reborn, so too is the world, proving that no matter how often oppression seeks to erase the past and with it people's real selves, it can never truly disappear. It can always be reclaimed. The film The Glass Harmonica is not just a religious allegory or a specific critique of the Soviet rule. It is a condemnation of authoritarianism in all its forms. A warning of what happens when people are made to tear down their own past and culture, forgetting who they once were in exchange for the illusion of security. At the beginning of the film, a text appears. Although the events of this film are fantastic in character, its authors would like to remind you of boundless greed, police terror, and the isolation and brutalization of humans in modern bourgeois society. On the surface, this statement aligns with anti-capitalist rhetoric, but in reality it was likely a clever ruse to slip the film past censors. The government realized this too late. The film was pulled from circulation and Khranovsky's work, including this attack on any system that stifles creativity and crushes the human spirit, was heavily scrutinized from then on. Despite the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, the specter of censorship endures, manifesting in both overt crackdowns and subtle constraints. Since the early 2000s, Russian authorities have systematically marginalized radical contemporary art, pushing it out of public spaces. This campaign culminated in the 2024 dissolution of the Department of Modern Trends at Moscow's Tretyakov Gallery, signaling a withdrawal of state support for contemporary art that engages with global trends. Artists who challenge state narratives face severe repercussions. In the lead-up to the 2024 presidential election, the Federal Security Service FSB raided the homes and studios of over 30 artists nationwide. This intimidation underscores the current, freely elected dictator Vladimir Putin's recognition of art's power to mobilize citizens and inspire visions of equitable futures grounded in human rights. But even under oppressive conditions, the indomitable spirit of Russian artists persists. Initiatives like Artists Against the Kremlin, a large-scale anti-war exhibition featuring over 100 works by Russian-speaking artists opposing war and authoritarianism, exemplify the courage and resilience of the creative community. These artists embody the unbreakable desire to express truth and beauty, challenging the forces that seek to silence them. Their work serves as a testament to the enduring power of art to inspire change and uphold the human spirit against tyranny. As long as this desire for expression remains, the music of freedom will continue to resonate, defying attempts to stifle it. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to give me a like, a comment, and maybe even subscribe. See ya!